Welcome back to another episode of the Wrinkly Brain Podcast. This is a Smooth Brain EDH affiliated podcast where we like to goof, gaff, and talk about the Commander format. I'm your host Jason with my co-host Cameron.
Howdy.
And this week's lovely guest is Carter. Carter, introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Carter. I am your local friendly paramedic student. I am also the president of competitive play for the UNM Magic team, esports, and paper. And I've been playing Magic since 2016. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, really excited to be here.
Yeah. More importantly, you're our friend. So, you're here for that. We felt like this was a good time because what we want to do with this episode is start off a mini-series on the channel. We love talking about Commander Precons. We brought them up plenty of times. You know, we like to talk about how they're designed and the cool cards that they'll introduce to the format. Doing things as well, like supporting underdeveloped mechanics or seeing returning mechanics in a new light, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 or 3 episodes where we build our own custom commanders and we figure out if we actually can do any of this worth a damn, because look at me, I'm R&D.
Yeah, once you start designing cards, you realize it's a little harder than you think to balance them.
Mm-hmm. So, this whole thing's going to lead up to us building precons. The next episode is going to have us talking about precons. But what we wanted to start with were some custom commanders. If you caught our live stream at time of recording, I believe this was on...
Would have been the 18th.
Yeah, the 18th of September. We reviewed like 26 custom commanders, and we brought a couple of them here to talk about as well, get some different thoughts on them, because Cameron and Carter were not in that stream, so they have new things to say, and I will be shutting up for the most part, because I was on that stream. But then we also decided, you know, it wouldn't be particularly fair of us to evaluate everyone else's commanders and then not put our money where our mouth is and show you some of our own. So each of us will also have our own custom commanders. We're going to be looking at 8 of them today.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right. And also, thank you once again to everybody who submitted to their commanders. We really appreciate it. It was a really fun stream. And now we can laugh at ourselves for our terrible designs. Let's start off.
Our terrible takes.
And our terrible takes.
I can start us off with the first one that we have listed. This was submitted by Wedge Boy. Thank you, Wedge Boy. Ezra, Keeper of the Peace. Ezra, Keeper of the Peace costs 2 white, hybrid blue-white in blue for a 2/3 human wizard. That text box is non-creature spells your opponents cast cost X more to cast, where X is the number of cards that player has drawn this turn. And it also has 2 activated abilities of 1 in a blue and tap it to have you and target opponent each draw a card, and 1 in a white, tap it, tap target creature and opponent controls. So, first off, I really like this design. I like stacks commanders in general. It kind of seems like they underpower them nowadays, except for Yasharn. I could go on and on about Yasharn, about how much I love that commander. But asymmetrical stacks pieces. You don't really see that much out of the command zone. I can't think of any. Can y'all?
Asymmetric stacks pieces in Azorius in the command zone? Like,
I guess, like...
Lavinia?
Lavinia.
Yeah, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But, so... I do like how this is based off of how many cards your opponent has drawn per turn. So that kind of stops, like, value-y commanders, you know? That's one, I know, kind of commanders that people have issue with. Take something like Tatiova, that, you know, you sneeze, you draw a card. So being able to stacks that a little bit and prevent some of the big, like, haymakers that can come out from those instants or sorceries, or non-creatures in general, sorry. But if I'm being honest, the first place my mind goes to with this kind of deck is a Howling Mine stacks deck, which is delicious.
Yeah.
Carter, what do you think?
So I also really, really, really love this card, mostly just for its pure value as a stacks piece. I like how it shuts down the more broken elements, but doesn't necessarily just, like, stop people from playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it just kind of makes everybody play fair Magic, which is really, you know, what a lot of people want. I also am not a big fan of, you know, a lot of the combos that are like, I'm going to draw my whole deck, then cast this spell for, like, 2 mana to win. Because, you know...
You can say it. It's Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah, I
you come out and say it.
fun fact about me, I absolutely despise Thassa's Oracle. It is my least favorite card. Personally, I hope that whoever designed it has a horrible day. I hope that someone breaks into their pantry and takes all the labels off of their canned goods so they have no idea what they're opening. I just hate it. And so anything that messes with Thassa's Oracle decks makes me very happy. And in my opinion, if it would actually make it a reasonable casting cost for Thassa's Oracle if it was like 90 something plus 2 blue because you drew your entire deck. So,
unfortunately, the Thassa's Oracle itself will still cost 2 mana.
Yes,
but the enablers,
the enablers, like your demonic consultations, like if you. Interesting if you're playing against like a Tymna deck, like the Tymna deck draws 2 more cards. They've drawn 3 cards that turn. Their post-combat main phase, all their non-creatures are going to cost 2 or 3 more, which is really good.
Yeah.
And double that with your Howling Mind effects if you go that route.
Yeah, the current play space with a lot of, especially in casual Commander, is to just draw excessive amounts of cards to try to get your means of outvaluing your opponent as opposed to reliably creating resources on board. People really have a tendency to rely too much on card draw, and this punishes a combo aspect of that. It does not necessarily stop like green-based creature strategies, though, which I think is still relatively good design space, especially because as you go higher up in those power levels, you're going to see more instants and sorceries as your reliable tools, as opposed to creatures. Really neat. The only thing I have to say on this is I don't hate the hybrid mana symbol in this. It's a little bit weird because we did have that cycle of like uncommons from Strixhaven that had this casting cost, which it's not a huge deal. But honestly, given how this commander functions, you could probably put it at 4 mana and it would be fine, and you just remove the hybrid symbol if you wanted to. Or if you're just keen on having the hybrid symbol, have at it.
That's what it is. I do want to make one more point. Kind of going back to the Howling Mind, I don't want to stay on it too long. But the Howling Mind commanders so far are like Xyrus and the Graceless one, Nekusar. Those are like your Howling Mind extra draw effect kind of decks. Are there any I'm missing that y'all can think of? Or
there's 2 in Azorius, but they're...
Oh, there's the Esper one that got printed too.
There's a decent number of Howling Mind commanders, but
this one kind of does it differently because those are more so negative effects for drawing the cards, where this one is making it harder to play the game, and you're kind of able to break parity with that. If you're drawing the 3 extra cards off the Howling Mind effects, or the 2 however many, then you're not having to pay the extra mana for those, whereas your opponents, their first non-creature spell is going to cost, 3 extra mana.
Yeah. This commander does a good job of presenting challenges without shutting down the game.
Yes.
Which I like. I think we're good on that one. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah. So the next custom commander is Yamashiro Daichi. I think I'm saying that right. I probably am. The Betrayer. It is a 1 colorless and black, red, green legendary creature, Demon Samurai. And it has the ability of once per turn, whenever a creature dies, you may cast a spell with converted mana cost X, where X is that creature's power from your hand without paying its mana cost. And then it also has, whenever you cast a spell, if you didn't spend any mana to cast it, you may pay 2 colorless. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you draw a card, and all of that is stapled onto a 5/3 body. So,
before we go too far, this was submitted by Tigran, so thank you, Tigran, for submitting this. Also, it is the spell that you can cast is of mana value X or less. So, if you had a 2-drop in your hand and 5 power creature died, you can still cast your 2-drop.
Yep. So my opinions on this commander is it's a really kind of unique design. I like it a lot. I like what it's trying to do, but right now it just does way too much. Like the fact that you can just, sacrifice a big dumb creature and then put any number of absurd spells onto the stack, not even, creature spells. As well as the, drawing a card and draining someone for 1 just gives it way too much.
Yeah, I agree that this, at 4 mana, this card does a lot and makes a lot of value. I think of a card like Morbid Opportunist, that is a really good card that sees reasonable play. That whenever a creature dies once per turn, you're drawing a card. Whereas this one, whenever a creature dies, you put one creature card. Is it cast? It is cast. So it is cast trigger. So you cast a creature card with, text. So at 4 mana, I feel like if it just had that first ability, it would be fine. But that second ability on top of it, I don't know how to break it because I'm not as good of a deck builder as some. But it just screams like it's meant to be broken somehow. Well, I know you like with some kobolds and stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
But before I finish, in the middle of reading this, I realized that it was just any free spell, and not just free creature spells. So you're obviously playing your deflecting. You're playing all 3 of those free cards in this deck: deflecting swat, deadly rollick, and the fog one I can never remember.
Yeah.
And there's other numerous free spells like the extra combats, Fury of the Hordes. I mean, Fury of the Hordes, you're free casting it. You're normally going down 3 cards, but being able to pay 2 mana and recoup some of that kind of takes away the downside of that card.
Yeah. I have similar opinions on this. The last ability of this card is too dangerous. I actually think the first ability is relatively fine. Because if you're just casting a card from your hand when something dies, so long as you don't have a means of recovering a creature right away to create a loop, and also it limits itself to once per turn. So, it has enough safety valves on the first ability to not be broken. It is the last ability where I find problems because of cards like kobolds. As dumb as this is, I'm going to play some goddamn Kobold Storm with this commander. I'm going to ad nauseum my deck with 0 mana value creatures in it, and I'm going to find my Cloudstone Curio and eventually just kill you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just thought of some more cute stuff you can do with this. If you Phyrexian Reclamation, since it's a trigger, with the trigger on the stack, you could sacrifice a creature, and with his trigger on the stack, Phyrexian Reclamation it back every turn. So if you have something busted, an Avenger of Zendikar, that's not busted, but an Avenger of Zendikar,
powerful.
You're able to. You have 7 lands per 1 turn table rotation. You're making 21 goobers, or Sepulchral Primordial or something.
The thing is based on power, right? So you can't actually sacrifice your. You can't sacrifice the Avenger to get it back, but if you had something that was a higher power than its casting cost, one of the cards I was kind of wondering if this was intentionally designed around was the Lightning Ball Elementals.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm wondering if Lightning Skelemental was a card that this is intended to be designed with. Probably not, but that's a cute thing you can do with it, and I love cute things. But good things scare me.
Yeah. Grave Titan works notably. And both Titans, Inferno and Grave Titan, those are absurd in this deck. But I kind of agree with Jason in that the first ability on a 4 mana card could exist. But stapled with being able to get some card advantage out of it, because that's kind of the downside, as Jason also alluded to, that these cards are coming from your hand, so you can run out pretty quickly. So without means to back it up, you can peter out pretty easily.
Yeah. One other important thing to mention on this is, and this is nitpicky, right?
Yes.
I didn't bring it up, but there was a small templating issue on the previous one where it's missing some commas. Templating thing here, I think the abilities for the most part are templated correctly. The thing I'm concerned about is the creature type.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this a samurai?
I mean, it can kind of work as a samurai. Moving back to if we remove the second ability and you give it Burst Strike or something, I think it works as a samurai, but with that second ability, I think.
Yeah.
What creature types were you thinking?
Warlock, Wizard, or Shaman makes sense here?
I like Shaman.
Yeah. All of those feel more accurate than a samurai. You could give me a lore reason why this would work, but I don't quite see it. I don't think it's particularly bad that it's a samurai, but demon makes perfect sense to me though.
Demon's
absolutely fine. This is a good demon. So everyone here has spotted some problems with this card. Is there anything we would recommend to fix it?
First thing, if you want to keep this card as is, you got to bump up the mana cost. Number one, 4 mana for that is ridiculous. I'd probably go 6, maybe even leaning 7. What would y'all think if you wanted to raise CMC?
Definitely 6 or 7 if you wanted to just keep it as is.
So it does cost 2 mana to do its ability. You could maybe leave this at 5 mana and it'd still be fine. But I think the bigger fix is more about talking about the abilities, right? My big fix here, if you wanted to leave this as 4 mana and keep that stat line, because I do like the stat line of it being a 5/3.
5/3. I agree.
Yeah, because if we bumped up its mana value, I'd want to bump up its power and toughness as well. But I really just feel like we already have a once per turn clause on this first ability.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just
put it on the second one?
Just combine those abilities to one big ability where it says, whenever a creature dies, once per turn, whenever a creature dies. Also worth noting this is not just yours.
It also triggers off of itself, correct?
Yeah.
The way it's templated. Would y'all want to put it as another or keep it out triggered?
I would prefer another.
I would too. I just thought of that.
Yeah, so the exact wording that I would like to see on this is once per turn whenever another creature dies, you may cast a spell with mana value X or less from your hand, where X is the creature's power without paying its mana cost. If you cast a spell this way, you may pay 2 mana, and each opponent loses 1 life, and you draw a card. There you go. We have a whole bunch of conditional stuff happening here, but once per turn you can draw a card, make your opponents lose life, and cast a spell for free if you have a sack outlet going. That's still really powerful, but way more balanced.
So the other change I would make to it is maybe altering it from spell period to creature spell.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, because I feel like that's just way too much space to just drop absurd things of any nature into play.
Yeah, because the way it's formatted currently kind of makes me think the creator wanted you to lean into the creature side of it. But if you keep it as is, then nobody's going to care about that first line of text. It's going to be about when you cast free things.
Yeah.
Also, if I think I'd also said one other thing you could do is remove the second, just leave that out, keep it at 4 mana. If that's the case, I would probably give it a keyword, either Menace, First Strike. Those are the 2 that come to mind for me. Maybe even Death Touch. Trample. Yeah, one of those.
We do have a 5/3, so that's fine by me. Yeah, a keyword would certainly feed into the feeling of it being a samurai a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Something where its profession matters.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we're good on this one. Let's move on to our third commander.
All right. Our third commander is King Numo the 14th. I think I can read Roman numerals. Heir to the Throne. It costs white-red for a legendary creature, a human noble. Let's see. Also, notably, this is designed by Numo. Thank you, Numo.
Yes.
And Numo is our overlord. Thank you, Numo. Whenever Numo the 14th, Heir to the Throne, enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. And at the beginning of your end step, if you are the monarch, populate, then populate again. Notably, the way it is formatted now, you get nothing if you are not the monarch. At your end step, you will populate twice if you are the monarch.
Did we say did we say this thing's a 0/1?
Yeah, I think did I? I don't know. It's a 0/1.
I like that.
I do too. I really. So, of the cards that are designed here, of the 5 that we're going over, 8, I suppose. I think this is my favorite. I really like the way it is formatted now. I know some people would prefer it if you still got to populate once if you weren't the monarch. But I kind of like the all or nothing aspect of it because introducing the monarch to the game at 2 mana with upside on your commander is insane. That's so much value. And consistently getting it on turn 2, Boros struggles with card advantage. We know this. So more cards. And also you can do some shenanigans like with Jaxus. Hate Mirage, I think, is one of the cards that makes tokens. We were talking beforehand about Mirror Mirage.
Mirror March.
Mirror March, not Mirror Mirage, I'm sorry. Also, notably, the populate mechanic only works with creature tokens, not just any token. So you can't populate, your treasures, your clues, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do y'all think?
I think this is a really good card and definitely like the most balanced on pure stats and abilities out of everything we're going to be looking at today. The first thing that comes to my mind is like just how sweet it would be to go turn 1 Legion's Landing, turn 2 Commander, turn 3 flip Legion's Landing, like really automatically, or just how absurd it would get with like one of those red-white token generator enchantments like Outlaw's Merriment.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
So I really like it. I really like what it's doing, and I definitely feel like it's the best, design. Like this seems like it would come straight out of like a pre-con for a set.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this commander is very good. We mentioned that getting the Monarch introduced into the game early, you need some risk reward associated with this. Like Monarch is a very powerful mechanic. I love Monarch with a burning passion.
Games are so much fun when it's introduced. It completes a completely... It encourages people to swing, which people should be swinging already, but that's another tangent we go on a different day.
Yeah. It's worth noting that if you're on the play, you're probably not losing the Monarch on turn 2 or turn 3. Right? So if you say, I have a 2-mana commander that's going to draw me 2 cards and it does nothing else, you have a good commander. Like
in Boros.
Yeah. This also, it's giving you the Monarch on an ETB again, which is pretty normal, but that encourages flicker shenanigans. We've got a whole lot of tokens things. It works very well with flying tokens, so you're encouraged to play with things like some angels, which is very cool.
Oh, I just thought of something. If you heat shimmer a Palace Jailer, and then you populate a Palace Jailer twice. Okay, yeah. Also worth mentioning, there are so many other ways to get the Monarch back in red-white. Yeah. You have, Palace Sentinels. You have both Courts. You have Palace Jailer. I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, there's a lot of Monarch mechanic that you can work with on this. And the other thing that was very important to note about this is we are saying on your end step, get 2 blockers.
Yes.
So you're going to be able to defend the Monarch pretty well. This commander is very, very set up to take the Monarch, keep the Monarch. So you need to be punished if you do not have the Monarch.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like all or nothing on this. And Cameron brought it up that Populate works with any creature token. So if you just have red copy effects with Heat Shimmer, you can copy any creature. So I don't know, start with your Arcanist and get your Heat Shimmer back, and then just start copying your whole board over time. Play your Kiki Jiki. Go crazy.
There's some shenanigans in this deck. You get Anointed Procession too, so you're getting you would be getting 4 tokens.
Yeah. Also, I didn't think about this until now, but Legacy and Modern All-Star, and also just every format at this point, Fable of the Mirrorbreaker.
Yeah.
This card's insane with Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. So good with Fable of the Mirrorbreaker.
Kiki effects in general.
Yeah.
Because those are a trigger on the end step, so you copy these, then those 2 tokens will stick around, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my only criticisms of this card are related to the flavor, but I do love the flavor as well. Heir to the Throne gives you the Monarch. Slight disconnect there. But on top of that, I do love that this is a 0/1 creature that does nothing on its own.
Yes.
Unless it has the Monarch giving it power.
Yeah.
It's kind of a flavor win in that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I do love this card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only fix I would make in this at all is just a slight change to the name on Heir to the Throne. Just, Numo the 14th here. Normally, if you're the 14th of your name, you acquired that name when you ascended to the throne, so you are no longer heir to the throne. Let's just remove that part of the title and just leave this as Numo the 14th.
King Numo the 14th.
Just King Numo the 14th. We had King Darien, we can do King Numo.
What was King Darien? What was his number?
48th? 47th? King Darien the 47th out of Dominaria United, I think?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, we can do this just fine. Oh yeah, a lot of Darians. But yeah, great design. Near 10 out of 10 for me. Alright, let's move on to our fourth custom commander of the day, our good friend Silar Zagoth Hermit by Drouse8351. Carter, tell us what it does.
Can do. So it is a legendary creature, of course. It's a mutant druid. It has mutate for a colorless and sultai, green, blue, black. And then it has whenever you cast a creature spell, you may create a 1/1 black, green, and blue mutant creature token with ward, discard a card. If a creature you control mutating causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and base cost is 2 and sultai.
Yep. So I like this card, but I feel like it's leaning a little too heavy into the mutate mechanic, especially because it's missing 2 of the better colors for mutate creatures, in red and white. Or, a lot of the really powerful mutate creatures had red in the casting cost. I like the tokens being made on casting of a creature spell. I like that they have ward, and I like the ability. But again, I feel like it's a very limited play space, as I believe mutate was only in 1 set.
Yes.
And so you're essentially playing Ikoria Commander, and yeah, I'm not really a big fan of that. But besides that, I really like it. It's a solid 7.5 or 8 out of 10 in my head.
Okay. Yeah, I am also of the opinion that this card is great. It's really well designed around the mutate mechanic. As Carter said, we have Ikoria and Ikoria. There was 1 commander deck built around mutate, or 2?
1 actually built around it. Yes.
Okay. It was the other Sultai one, right? Utrimi, the Ever Playful.
Yes. So Utrimi, the Ever Playful.
You do have cards to work around with within the Sultai colors, whatever the commander was. And I do like as well. Well, hold on. Let me start off by saying I know reading the room now. I know that mutate isn't the biggest mechanic. Y'all aren't the biggest fans of mutate. I can't say I've ever played with it outside of limited. The one thing I really do like about this though is that mutate seems to get blown out a lot. It kind of has the aura enchantment problem of you load up one creature and if it gets blown out, it gets bounced, then I lose everything. Whereas this allows you to spread out your mutate targets, because when you're casting, you're making another little dude that you can mutate with. And that mutate Harmonicon is nice, but honestly, the biggest part for me is that first ability of being able to go wide.
Yeah. Alright. As the resident mutate hater, let me say I think this is the best design custom card here. Legitimately, I still just dislike mutate because it has very bad play experiences and the general rule fuckery is just terrible. Sorry, it's just awful. But this card is single-handedly making me rethink the entire mechanic and reevaluate it to see it in a different light. Right? It's obviously mutate's play pattern is find small creature, mutate big thing onto it, have a mutate trigger, attack with it, and then just continuing to put onto the same creature to try to make a bigger and bigger mutate creature with limitations, because the only way, you're limited by the base power and toughness of these creatures. It can't
scale up in power. It will just take on the highest power of the creatures.
It will stop. It will stop getting larger. Unless you have something that gives it 1/1 counters, I think it's Glowstone Recluse or something is what it's called. But, the important thing is you're trying to create this just bevy of triggers that go off every time you mutate, which this commander supports if you want to do that. But also, it's giving you non-creatures to mutate onto to help you spread your board out. It's also making so you don't just die to an edict effect, which is always one of the worst things about working with mutate. And the commander itself can mutate, but you don't always want to, because you don't want to be necessarily mutating onto your commander. But if you want to get a big creature to go for combat damage, now you have that dynamic play experience of, well, now I can go for commander damage if I make my commander huge, but my commander is not the one that has protection built in. It's the tokens it's creating that have the protection.
The card itself gives this kind of deck a lot of play, different axes to attack from.
Yeah. It is really doing a great job of addressing the weaknesses of mutate while still giving it a very good and fun dynamic play experience. It's not fixing some of the issues, like mutate costs are generally extremely high, in some cases higher than just casting the creature normally, which is obnoxious.
Yeah.
And the only other thing for me that's like two small criticisms, again, one, those tokens may be a little bit strong because they have the protection built into them. Maybe that's actually wrong. They shouldn't have protection built in, but I do personally like that.
You could change it to like a Ward 1 or something, or Ward 2, because discarding cards pretty big cost.
It is, but honestly, discarding a card is sometimes easier than paying the extra mana.
Depends upon
enough.
The deck.
Yeah, it really depends. And then the other thing is, and this is like a super minor criticism thing, and because it largely has to do with the artwork that is chosen, so that's like super niche criticism here. Very nitpicky, right? We are working with a 2/3 mutant druid. It has Zagoth in the name, right? We are very clearly on Ikoria. The only humanoids on Ikoria are humans. And this is a humanoid lizard-looking thing. So,
I don't
ideal.
know. There's a leader of the beasts that lives in the caves, and this is him.
Personally,
human mutated.
I would just have this on not Ikoria and just say there's another plane with mutants.
That would be cool.
Just do that.
That would be cool.
Right? Just change, like, it's a slight change to the name or a slight change to the artwork. I actually really like this artwork. We're not, like, crediting the artist here, and I can't read the name right now, but, like, very nice. I really like it. So it was, like, super nitpicky thing, but it's one of those things where if, like, you were working for WotC, you would need to think about that in art choice.
One thing I like that you brought up is how mutate is kind of overcosted sometimes. Like, in the mutate, like, destroy a creature, like, 5 mana or something. Like
6.
The card 6. So
Dirge bad.
Yeah, that's it. This one really helps balance that out, because 6 mana for 2 creatures is less icky. It's still not great, but like with the doubling up of triggers, and then you mutate something again on top of that, so you get 2 more creatures that you destroy, and a whole bevy of things. Sea Dasher Octopus is cool with this. With this,
yeah, I genuinely think like this commander again is legitimately making me rethink the entire mechanic and how it can be a redeemable mechanic. In its current form, I still hate it with a burning passion. But if this was my commander, I would probably enjoy playing a mutate deck.
Yeah.
Alright, let's move on to the last card that was submitted to us by viewers.
Alright. This commander is Krevitch, Nightmare Shaper, submitted to us by Kraken787. Thank you, Kraken. Krevitch, Nightmare Shaper is 1 blue, black, for a legendary human wizard that's a 3/4. And this creature comes with a new mechanic. So I'll read it in its entirety. Other creatures you control have Transfigure. The Transfigure cost is equal to their mana cost +1. To Transfigure, sacrifice that creature and search your library for a creature card with the same mana value and put it onto the battlefield. Transfigure only at when you could cast a sorcery. And then if you would, and it has one more line of text. If you would search your library and graveyard instead. So my degenerate mind immediately went to having uncountable Thassa's Oracle off of a Bob or a Ghostly Pilferer or you know, Dalthy Voidwalker, one of those 2 mana hate bears, or someone gives you a Gilded Drake or something and you sacrifice the Gilded Drake to go get an Oracle or something degenerate. Very good. I think that would be really good in the CDH, or a unique way to play that kind of deck combo, you know, more so than we see now. But the fun side of me saw this and went, oh, if I built this as, 3 or 4 CMC creature tribal, a blue-black toolbox creature deck is not something you would really see in most pods of EDH. But that's a really cool design, in my opinion, like the Transfigure. Do something like that.
I feel very much the same way. Like, it's a very unique design space. I love the mechanic. Flavor-wise, or like color pie-wise, it's kind of interesting for blue-black. I feel like it's almost more of like a black-green card.
I agree.
And my biggest issue is, as we established earlier, I hate Thassa's Oracle. And this would cause me to lose my mind, because as Thassa's Oracle exists right now, it's already very absurd. And like you said, an uncounterable, essentially almost Aether Vial effect on Thassa's Oracle is very frustrating. I like the fact that they kind of, going back to the color pie, put it back into the color pie flavor by letting you search your library and graveyard. I feel like that's a really nice addition, and it gives it a lot more value. And so overall, I like the card. It has some, issues, but nothing crazy, and it is definitely powerful, but I don't believe it's absurdly broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very similar spot. I think the card design is very interesting. I really actually like the casting cost here with blue, black, black, which really very firmly says, like, this is primarily a black card, but you're getting blue as well because of some of the things that we're doing here. Mm-hmm. Transfigure is hard to evaluate since this is not a new mechanic.
Oh, it's not?
It is a mechanic that is on exactly one card from Future Sight.
What is the card?
I believe it's called Flesh Writhe. It's just a 4 mana, it's like a 4 mana 3/3 with Transfigure.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like Transfigure 3 or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. That's all the card is. So it just has the Transfigure mechanic and has nothing else to it. I have no idea how good a deck is going to be if you give every card in your deck, like functionally every card in your deck can become a sack outlet tutor. Sounds pretty powerful, but also it's an intense mana cost, right? Like, obviously you want to play with ETB creatures, like you want to play your Spellseeker for 3 mana, go tutor out your thing, and then sacrifice your Spellseeker for 4 mana to go get your new 3 mana thing to do something else. It's good. I actually don't know if it's broken. It's definitely powerful, but honestly, probably not broken.
One thing that helps it is you can't move up the chain. It is the same mana cost. There is no chain.
Yes, because we do not get the birthing pod problem where you're just continually getting up the chain to progressively better creatures. You're just getting different creatures. Mm-hmm. And you're still paying high mana costs to do it. You're not paying 1 mana. The only thing I could really think of, aside from the Thassa's Oracle related stuff that was already mentioned, is we can get into some weird area with cards that produce mana on ETB, like Priest of Gix, because you are able to search your graveyard. If you weren't able to search your graveyard and just keep looping a Priest of Gix, then that's a different story, right? Because if we introduce our commander, Priest of Gix, plus Panharmonicon, you have generated infinite black mana. And then you can go and find some different 3-drop creature out of your deck. There's probably some Invoker to just kill somebody.
I mean, as a combo, I'm fine with that. Like, that's pretty... Number one, it's sorcery speed. So you are pretty easily interacted with. And number two, let's see, your command... So that's a 3-card combo with 1 card being your commander. Like, I'm okay with that.
A 3-card combo that's going to require you... I want to say that it's going to require you a total of 11 mana to... Obviously, you're doing this over multiple turns, but it even costs more than that because you do have to pay the mana into the Transfigure cost. So it's like... You're going to functionally pay 12 mana, assuming that your good old Priest is paying for itself, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty mana-intensive combo. It's not too bad. There's also something else to be said of working with 0-mana creatures again, like, because this is now 1 mana to go find another 0-mana creature, but honestly, like... The important one for me is... the ability to, like, entomb a Walking Ballista for a, like, Necrotic Ooze combo. But, again, like, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. All the resources that have to go into that, you're also, in that, from what I've noticed, people are playing more Graveyard Hate, too. So, like, you're also more susceptible, this deck is susceptible to Graveyard Hate. And I do think this would also, Scatterbrain, would make an interesting self-mill deck, just being able to... Stitcher Supply or some Altered Dimensions. Altered Dimensions is actually very good in this deck. Mm-hmm. But I really like this design. It's cute being able to search your graveyard. Not many cards. The only card I can think of off the top of my head that lets you do that is Finale of Devastation.
Yes.
I don't know if there's any static effect that lets you search your graveyard. That'd be a pretty cool design space.
Yeah, it's a cool replacement effect. I like this exploration. It may be too strong, but I like the exploration.
Can't know until we see how broken or not broken it is in game.
Yeah, exactly. We'd have to see it to know for sure. And this is why playtesting is important, kids.
Yes.
All right. So now those are the 5 custom commanders that people have submitted. Guys, what's your favorite one?
Probably Heir to the Throne. Like, I just love that. It's has so many neat designs, like deck building and design spaces built into it. It's not absurd. It requires you to build the deck in a certain way. And it, like you said, is just a 0/1 if you don't have the Monarch. And also, who doesn't love the Monarch?
Yes, that I will agree with Carter that Numo 14th is my favorite overall. Mainly for the reasons that Carter alluded to. Mainly, I love Monarch as a mechanic. I think we all do. Who does? Yeah, as Carter said, who doesn't love Monarch? And second place, close second, I've talked myself into Krevitch. I like that a lot more than I initially thought.
I like Krevitch as well, but I'm still going to sit with Silar. There's not a single card that we looked at in that entire stream that made me rethink an entire mechanic. So, this is what I want to see, especially out of something like a precon, right?
Yes.
Where it just completely changes your perspective on a card or gives you something cool to work with. So, Silar Zagoth Hermit is my go-to. And now that we have offered some kind and harsh criticisms of other people's commanders, all right, money where mouth is, let's start with mine.
Yep.
So I have Grok Suxar, Realm Slaver. 2 mana, it is a 4 mana creature for 2 black-red. It's a legendary creature, Orc Shaman. It says, once each turn, you may cast the first creature spell you exile face up from any library. Cast that spell without paying any mana. And whenever a creature you cast from exile enters the battlefield, it gains haste until end of turn. So, the design goal here, just say, this is actually something I designed 4 years ago. I went through a stint of doing a whole bunch of custom cards and really digging deep into trying to make these mechanics work. So this is one I've just tuned up a little bit with a little bit more modern wording and to try to make it work a little bit better. Mechanically, the goal was to try my hand at red-black Impulsive Draw Matters, which was relatively new at the time. Prosper did not exist.
Yes.
So we didn't have anything that cared about playing with that mechanic. And I wanted to merge it with Black's ability to only cast things from exile for free if they're stolen. And if you pair that with Red's ability to steal things, you get something that's a little bit unique on the impulsive draw support area. Thematically, I tried to design a warlord who's dragging people from other planes to serve in their own military. And to make that fit, I wanted to make it into a Mardu War Shaman, which is a neat idea, although interestingly, I have a very good feeling that if this was actually on why am I blanking on Tarkir? If this was a Tarkir related thing, and it was actually with the Mardu value freedom above all else, so they would hate this guy, so he'd probably be an outcast. Also, that last ability, I designed that before Chainer Nightmare Adept existed, so don't blame me for the similarities.
He did it first. They copied his whole flow.
Yeah, they copied Jason. Question, would it not be phrased as cast that spell without paying its mana cost, or is the way you worded it correct?
Oh yeah, without its mana cost.
And paying any mana. Okay, I didn't know if they had changed it.
That's a slightly better wording.
Okay.
No, you got the better wording there.
But overall, I guess I'll go and segue. I really like this card. I love punchies. And punching people with their creatures is really fun. So if you're playing against some really cool decks with good enter the battlefield triggers that are beneficial, you can steal those too, which is really in flavor for red. But there's little combos like Leyline of the Void's not bad in this deck, because if you play things that mill every player, or Dothy Voidwalker, things like that, they exile a creature, and then you're just in Value Town. So good job, Jason. I really like this.
I feel very much the same as Cameron. Jason designed a great card. I love how flavorful it is for what it's trying to do. I love the play patterns. I love the fact that it's not absurd, but it's still very powerful and potent. It needs to be answered if it will eventually win the game, but it's not I drop it, you have 25 seconds to kill this.
Yeah, it's not a self-engine. It enables the rest of the deck, as opposed to, a self-contained commander engine that enables the deck and wins the game all in one, like some commanders are now.
Yeah. One of the other things that I like about this commander, which is really dumb how, like, I am in the rules minutia on this, that I specified it has to be exiled face up to avoid any issues with cards like Pyxis of Pandemonium.
I thought of that immediately. I immediately thought of that.
Yeah. Like, I went for the minutia on making this thing work. I still messed up, but it's fine.
That's still relevant. That is 100% relevant, because not like people are going to be playing Pyxis or whatever, but like Reality Shift or something. No, that's Manifest. Yep. Well, whatever. But face up does matter. It does matter.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Also, one of the fun thoughts on this card that not particularly brought up, but Cascade.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's really cool. Yeah. That's a cool little Cascade deck. And Black-Red have really good Cascade, like Throes of Chaos.
Unfortunately, as the current wording, it doesn't intervene to actually allow you to cast it, but I could make a change to it to enable you to be able to do that. Yeah, if Averna exists and lets you take a land anytime you Cascade, you're going to be able to do this.
I would be down to make that work with Cascade. That would be really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for the comments on it. Glad I didn't embarrass myself.
Yes. I guess.
All right.
Is it my turn to roast myself?
Yeah, Cameron, let's see it.
All right. So, I'll start with a little prelude of how Jason and I have discussed at length that Jeskai is poopy, and a lot of the commanders they designed for Jeskai is poopy. There's, like, the weird dog one that, like, the hound that, like, you can tap it to the number of spells you've cast, and you either gain life, scry, or...
Chimera.
Chimera, yeah.
Nostro.
Sorry, Nostro. Like, that one's bad. The only ones that are good, that I can think of at the top of my head that are good, are, like, Elsha. And Elsha's kind of... I'm not the biggest fan of Elsha.
It's...
Narset?
Jeskai's design space is really kind of either bad or it's stuck in non-creature spells. Something non-creature spells.
It feels like Jeskai is really stuck in that. It's either non-creature spells or spells matter or whatever the fuck Savine is.
It's still non-creature spells.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. So I leaned into the colors of blue and white to be able to blink stuff, and red stealing your opponent's stuff. So I'll read the card. This is Othniel, Asker of Favors. 2 in Jeskai, so 2 blue, red, white. For a legendary cat wizard that reads, at the beginning of combat on your turn, exile target creature and opponent controls, and return it to the battlefield under your control. That creature gains haste until end of turn. At the end of combat, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control. So I remember I had to talk with Jason a little bit because the wording was kind of finicky on this. So as I said, Jeskai never really had a color identity, so I thought this would be really cool to lean into, with blue and white being the primary blink colors and red being the steely color. And I had also toyed with the design space of, like, your opponent also getting it back, blinking it, so they get the, like, enter the battlefield trigger again. But at that point, for 5 mana, that kind of felt underpowered, that you would get it and they would get it. I think you could do something cool, like, with Ghostly Flicker effects. Like, you still have the potential to get more of the ETB. Like, you can blink their stuff again. It'll still go back to them unless, I think it's Ghostly Flicker, right? Ghostly Flicker would reset it, and you would get to keep it, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
If it flickers something and says return to the battlefield under your control, you just hold on to it permanently.
Yeah, so that's something you could do. I don't know all the cards that do that effect, to be fair. But yeah, I don't have, like, lore implications for the card. It's just something I came up with. Jason's cooler than me. Sorry. Not sorry.
Jason's cooler than everyone. Don't feel bad.
I try my best. I assure you, I don't try at all.
That's why you're so cool.
Cool guys don't look at explosions.
Yes.
Hey, Carter, what do you think?
I really like it. I love the fact that it's not just, like, every Jeskai deck I sit down to play against tends to be, like you guys mentioned, non-creature spells. or doing something that's just, broken but only non-creature broken. I like this. I feel like the card would play really well with like a Soul Hoarder effect, blinking, stuff like that. I like how you designed it to where it's not, really underpowered by making the opponent get the trigger. So overall, I really do like the design on this card.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really cool about this, the merging of Flicker and Steel is a merging of mechanics that feels distinctly Jeskai to me.
Yes.
Like, the next closest thing to that would be like Grixis, or like, to an extent, Esper could do it. But how this is working, because it has the temporary component to it, it feels very good. There's an opportunity cost to not trying to steal your opponent's creatures. But as another thing that was mentioned, I don't remember if Soul Hoarder actually enters the creature to the battlefield under your control, or if it just returns it to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Soul Hoarder also triggers on end step, and the way I have this worded, it returns at the end of combat. Because I didn't want to make it too easy to like permanently keep things, because like I think Thassa would have worked. I think Thassa says your control, true. So it would have been a little too easy to do that.
Okay, but. Yeah, I missed that actually. That it's end of combat, not end of turn. Because
it
was also, but either way, what I'm about to say applies. Yeah. There is a tension that you can do. I know you'd mentioned in like the first iteration of this design, you wanted it to again blink and return under the opponent's control so they can get their ETB again, as well as like a political tool. I like that you can actually just, play Flicker spells in your deck that return under the opponent's control and say, well, I'll just give you your Flicker ability. I'll target my thing, but you'll get it, and, maybe we can copy and do something so I still get my own value, but you're also getting your things. There's a political tool in here that I like. Yeah.
And again, you're also in Jeskai, so you have all the good colors for the doubling up, like Panharmonicon. I mean, you're probably still... Blink is one of my favorite archetypes, just as an aside. So you also are playing the good Blink creatures already, probably like your Mole Drifters and your Teleportation Circles, Conjurer's Closets, etc., etc.
Yeah. Also, as like a random thing, is just like the fact that you made this a cat wizard that's asking for favors just has me all just like Khajiit would like to ask you a favor.
That was not the intention, but I'm glad it's there. The flavor text also was supposed to say something like thanks in advance or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this. It's cool. It's not really any changes I would really make. There's maybe the wording at the very end on how it returns to its owner's control, but like that's cool. I think you have it right.
Thank you. Thank y'all both.
All right, Carter, bring out the big boy.
Alrighty. So, first off, I want to say thank you to my good friend and friend of Smooth Brain, Obsidian or Gavin, for helping me fix the wording on this, because little known fact about me, I am horrible at making things make sense, like on the card, if that makes... like, before it was a mess of words, and it didn't do what I wanted to do. Now it does. So it is called Logron, Son of Swamps. It costs 3 green and 3 black for a 5/6 frog horror. It is a legendary creature. It has, whenever he enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a swamp or a swamp or a forest, and then he has the ability, whenever you sacrifice a forest, draw a card and you gain 4 life. Whenever you sacrifice a swamp, target opponent, all opponents lose 4 life and discard a card. And then he also has sacrifice a land, add 1 mana of any color that land could produce, and that all of that is on a 5/6 body. So, I really like how landfall decks play. My favorite deck of all time is the Gitrog monster. I'm a huge advocate for it, and I really like lots of value decks. So I wanted to make something that is powerful but not busted. This card is, I'll admit, very much dancing on the very thin line between the two. But my idea was I wanted it to be a threat, because in green-black there's a handful of them, but not like as many threats that just enter and need to be dealt with. So I wanted to make it to where this is the biggest threat on the board. It can do busted things, but it requires you to have a lot of lands in order to do something. So it does have the possibility to, what is it called? Reclamation, the 3-mana one.
Splendid.
Splendid Reclamation.
It's 4 mana.
Life from the Loam.
Yep.
Loam.
Crucible of Worlds. All of those type of effects are really good in this deck. And so I really just wanted to build that type of deck. And so, yeah, that was kind of my thought process, my design, all of that.
Mm-hmm. So, this card is very strong. I think you said that you wanted to build... It is... I forget what the wording was. I wanted to make the point that it feels like instead of lands, this is specifically forests and swamps. I know you have Yavimaya and Urborg to help mitigate that. But wanted to bring that up. I do like how you've made the mana cost very restrictive as a cost of it being very powerful, like the Niv Mizzet effect. The only caveat to that is you are probably in the 2 best colors for fixing your mana. You are in green, so you have like Dryad of Elysian Grove. You have that's the main one, and you're probably also playing. What's the enchantment that also makes all lands, all types? Prismatic Omen? No.
Yes.
Is that it? Go me.
Yes.
So one thing you might be able to do to mitigate some of the power is instead of the May on the ETB, I kind of like it as a must. Like when it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice a swamp or a forest. Because even like, let's compare this to Gitrog, because you like Gitrog. Gitrog does have a mandatory clause, not on ETB, granted, but it has a mandatory clause of on your upkeep, you sacrifice a land, which is
you sacrifice Gitrog.
Yeah. So albeit
big cost.
Yeah. Albeit you're probably wanting to sacrifice a land to be honest and get your but like there is real cost to that, and so maybe not slapping it on verbatim here, but I kind of do like you must sacrifice a forest or a swamp and or sacrifice this. I also like Squandered Resources as a card. I think those kinds of effects don't get enough play nowadays, or not enough like time in the sun. So having a commander with Squandered Resources on it is really cool. Yeah.
Cameron's hitting like all the points that I think are really really keen to talk about with this commander. Now, Carter, I need to tell you the baby's ugly.
Yeah, it is.
Because let me walk you through this play sequence. Let me talk you through this sequence. All right, if you have a Yavimaya or an Urborg and you're playing a green-black deck to try to find them...
you need 10 lands.
10 lands will do it, yes. But, let's just say we're on turn 6, right? You cast your commander, you sacrifice all of your lands, rip every card out of your opponent's hands while dealing them 24 damage, and then either cast a huge spell or something that recovers your lands.
Yeah.
Splendid Reclamation.
Yeah, you just Splendid Wreck your lands back, or, you just drop your big Titan of some type that you want to pay, because you still get 6 mana to cast your spell here.
You follow up with like a... what's the card everybody closes games in with black? Black, X. What is that card? I don't know.
Torment of Hailfire?
Thank you. That is that card.
Yeah,
we lost to that last night.
Yes, we did. Could have just been attacked, but,
Torment that's never that...
18 or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, it's never that easy with him.
So... I think that sequence is too consistent here.
Yeah.
That makes it in a way that's unbalanced. I really want to play with a Squandered Resources type of effect on this card, because I think that's really cool. You probably just need to give this a first each turn clause on the sacrificing of a forest or a swamp, right? The first time you sacrifice a forest each turn, draw a card and gain 4 life. The first time you sacrifice a swamp each turn, each opponent loses 4 life and discards a card. Yeah, perfectly.
Still very good at that point.
Yeah. So the other fix that I did tinker with the idea of is making it a basic forest and basic swamp.
The file route.
Yeah, just kind of forcing you to have a lot of basics and not be able to, do really broken play patterns with the Urborgs or Yavamayas. And then I originally did have it to where you could only do it like, I think I said 3 times a turn, but I couldn't figure out the wording on it to make it, still a functional magic card. So that just kind of got removed. But I feel like the other thing I could do is, I feel like it would be a lot more reasonable if it had the basic clause and maybe another of each for the mana cost. So 4 black, 4 green.
8 mana.
honestly, if you're going to restrict it to the basics clause on
I think
this,
it's fine where it is in that point.
I'm half thinking to make the mana cost a little bit easier then, right? Because if you have to have basics, spending 6 colored mana, functionally all of it's going to need to be from basics. That's really hard to do if you want to do your big explosive turn. And I want this deck to be able to do an explosive thing. I just don't want it to be able to do it consistently.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like the design space of basic lands matter. The only one is like Phylath. And
Phylath is the only other option.
Mm-hmm, and it's basic lands matter is a really cool archetype because number one, people don't play enough basics in general in EDH.
Yeah, and I just came off of a video where we played Hazezon Shaper of Sands. Like that was from our Dominaria United video. By the time you guys get this, that'll been about 1 month ago. The Hazezon working with a bad land type in deserts that has some serious downsides and has because so many deserts are colorless, right? Or colorless producing lands, they just don't cast your commander easily. That makes me want to redeem some of the and go we can make this just have the 2 green, 2 black, and 2 generic casting costs if we work with if we're trying to work with strictly basics.
Yeah.
So I think you are definitely on the right track. It needs a nerf, but a minor nerf.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to make it unplayable. I where we're at, I like it. It's, as Jason said, just a little itty bitty.
Yeah. Also, again, on that small criticism, very very small criticism thing, nitpicky type of thing. Your artwork is an elemental, not a frog. Obviously, if we're working at WotC, you make the art to match, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But I really wanted to use as a segue to say we don't need to be a frog horror. That feels like we're hearkening to Get Rog a little too much, right?
I kind of like this being a plant, some kind of plant horror.
Plant horror would be cool.
That would be cool. I don't know if we've ever seen a plant horror.
Plant tribal force it.
One thing that I was given in a really weird area, I'm not sure how well it would work. I want Leech in here somewhere.
Ooh, yeah, there's not enough leeches.
Yeah, a legendary leech would be kind of interesting.
Leech
here.
horror, leech monster. Is monster creature type? I think so.
Yeah. It's cool.
Very cool.
I like so much of this design overall, though. So I really like the headspace.
Yeah, good job, everyone. All our commanders. I thought all of ours were cool.
Yeah, overall, I think we did a pretty good job. Comment section, tell us we're wrong and why. I'm sure there's some things that we could do to fix stuff up. And obviously, we mentioned that this is going to be going into building precons, and we're going to be doing some stuff with it. Cameron and I will be the ones building precons here. Cameron, have you decided on which one you're working with yet?
Either
I think you did say
Numo. I didn't know if we discussed the possibility of using our own. But
no, we can use our own.
It's either going to be Numo or mine. I really like mine. Yeah. I just like Blink.
I do like it as well. I've already decided I'm going to be working with Silar and trying to make Mutate work in a way that I like it. So, all right, and with that, everybody, thank you once again for watching another episode of the Wrinkly Brain Podcast. If you'd like to see edited gameplay video, head over to our main channel, SmoothBrainEDH. We upload every Saturday. We have a game night on our Discord afterwards. You can click on all of our links, join our Discord, hang out with us, watch Obsidian cast insane Torment of Hailfires for some reason instead of just swinging with a Razaketh. The good old stuff that you get. As always,
You get to watch Obsidian shuffle for at least half an hour to 45 minutes every game.
Excellent.
It's great conversation time. I use it to meet new people. Love you, Obsidian. I really do, bud.
Yeah, if you want to talk to us directly, hang out with us, you can join our Discord. We've got everything we're talking about, all important links. We're going to link these custom cards as well into a little Dropbox so you guys to look at and download if you want to mess with them. All that stuff's going to be in the links in our description. Among those links is going to include things like our social media and our Patreon and affiliate links. We are sponsored by Dragon Shield if you want to give us a little bit of a kickback here or there, or if you want to support us financially directly on the Patreon itself. We also get cool benefits for joining our Patreon, like if you want to participate in a Precon League with us. So, we have those things available. There may or may not be new Precons that will be involved in this soon. We'll find out. So, other than that, keep a lookout for the next upload. We're going to be doing those 2 full Precon decks. You don't want to miss that. That's going to be really fun to talk about, and seeing how terrible we are at designing Precons, and maybe we'll do something right. Maybe someone will tell us if we're doing something okay. Alright, and this has been Jason with Cameron and Carter. Thank you all very much for watching, and have a great day.